All right, then, everyone. Of course, once again, my name is King Von Jr. and I'm here to present. Of course, lately I've been doing a series of top tens when it comes to the NBA. Since we're in NBA final season, well, at least from the looks of it. Of course, right now we're getting ready to wind down. Of course, when it comes to the finals, but this is a series that I wanted to get into. And like I said, last week I did revealed my top 10 point guards of all time. So I like to continue that when it comes to the top 10 shooting guards of all time. And coming up with these lists, it's never, of course, coming up with these lists is never easy whatsoever, with the exception of, usually with the exception of whoever it is, whoever your number one is, number one, number two, maybe, or something like that. But generally speaking, those names that are like in the middle towards the end, it's definitely, definitely a bit of a scramble, if you will. So I'll say that, my point guard list, is very solid. My shooting guard list, I believe, is pretty solid. And of course, later on, especially when it comes, when it comes to small forwards and power forwards, that's going to be, some of the tougher ones, centers possibly, but of course, without further ado, like I said, I definitely want to, definitely want to dive in to this list of my top 10 shooting guards. So once again, if anything, my criteria boils down to a number of things, not only championships, individual dominance, like consistency, a sustained level of dominance over a period of time. Pretty much like the level of importance that you have, not only for your team, but all across the league. The imprint that you've left behind for others, for others to follow. Pretty much just an overall stamp on the game in and of itself. Like as far as cultural impact, all those things. You know what I mean? Those are the things that of course, like I said, that ultimately base my list on. Whether it's especially when it comes to basketball. Whether it's football, you name it. Like pretty much those type of checkpoints are typically what I look for, when it of course when it comes to my rankings. So like I said, of course, like I said, I don't want to, like I said, anyway, let me slow down. I don't want to hold this up any longer, but like I said, without further ado, once again, not to stall anything anymore, but I just wanted to give out my criteria once again. Anytime I do these lists, I definitely want to give a disclaimer when it comes to my criteria. So here we go. So I would say that picking number 10 was certainly pretty tough. But at the same time, my number 10 choice is someone who's definitely left a very profound mark, on of course, on the game. This guy's a Hall of Famer, top 75 player, much like everybody else on this list. Like I said, somebody who's a contributor on championship teams, one of the premier three-point shooters of all time. I would certainly say that when it came to his particular era, I would say that he was certainly for me the premier three-point shooter of his time. None other than, let's say, Mr. Shuttlesworth himself, because he definitely got game. And of course, this guy's a two-time NBA champion. Of course, one with the Boston Celtics and another one with the Miami Heat. But before that, of course, he was known for more than just three-point shooting. This guy had a more of an all-around game. This guy, was great when like I said, this guy was more than just a three-point spot up three-point shooter early on in his career. Early on, he was a guy that that had a more all-around game. This is a guy that like I said, he did more than three-point shooting. This was a guy who, this was a guy that could finish at the rim. You know what I mean? As far as that's concerned, like I said, just a more complete, package. Especially when it came to his early Milwaukee years. And not only that, but I would say that he really broke through individually when he was with Seattle, and of course later on, Of course, later on he became an integral part when it came to the Boston Celtics big three, of Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, who are also top 75 players as well. So this guy was a vital third option, if you will, when it came to that championship team, when it came to that Celtics run in and of itself overall. And of course, this is none other than Ray Allen himself. And fun fact, Ray Allen actually shares a birthday with me, July 20th. Side note, I guess I'm giving an early spoiler for next month. When it comes to my list of birthdays, but like I said, when it comes to Ray Allen, Ray Allen has definitely left a very indelible mark when it comes to NBA history. Pretty much this guy's resume, his legacy and everything like that speaks for itself. Now of course later on there are people that definitely scrutinized him, scrutinized him, especially when it came to him, at least when it came to him, at least when it came to him, going after more than one ring. So he was seen as a ring chaser, going from a very dynamic, Celtic squad, with like I said, with the likes of Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, and then he ends up going to the Miami Heat. And there was definitely a lot of bad blood when it came to him and the Celtics. So I guess eventually, by the time we got to the top 75 ceremony, there was some more sort of like water under a bridge, if you will. But if anything, Ray Allen, Ray Allen was part of that 1996 NBA draft, that legendary NBA draft, and he was the 5th overall choice. Of course, he was. Sorry about that. Ray Allen was part of that very legendary 1996 NBA draft, and he was the fifth overall pick. And originally it was for the Minnesota Timberwolves, but the last minute, that of course, as we all know, it's one of those like draft day trades between him and Stephon Marbury. So Marbury ends up going to the Timberwolves. Ray Allen ends up going to the Bucks, and as we all know, the rest is history. So of course, when it came to Milwaukee, Ray spent 7 years there. After that, he ends up going to the Seattle SuperSonics, and it just has incredible breakout seasons from there to 2007. Right before they ended up drafting Kevin Durant. After and of course in the summer of 2007, Ray Allen ends up going to the Boston Celtics. Obviously, wins his first championship. He's there, they're from of course, excuse me, sorry about that. Of course, he spends 5 years there. Spends 5 years in Boston right before going to Miami, and being a critical part of why the Heat won that championship against the Spurs in 2013. With that clutch three-point shot, something that he built it, something that he definitely certainly made a career out of. And so so of course he spent the last 2 years of his career with the Miami Heat. Like I said, of course, discover that. Let me slow down. Let me slow down. Let me list off Ray Allen. Some of Ray Allen's accomplishments. He's a 2-time NBA champion in 2008, 2013. I just said over and over. He's a 10-time NBA All-Star from 2000 to 2002, and eventually from 2004 to 2009. Made his last appearance in 2011. He was part of the All-NBA second team in 2005, All-NBA third team in 2001. He also won the 2003 NBA Sportsmanship Award, and he was also a three-point contest champion in 2001. And of course, once again, start with that. And of course, once again, as I've said before, he was named on the NBA's 75th anniversary team. And so of course, Ray Allen finished his career with nearly 25,000 points, pretty much. And so so of course, when it comes to NBA history, when it comes to great 3-point shooters, you cannot talk about the greatest 3-point shooters and not mention Ray Allen. And speaking of great 3-point shooters, I have to go, at number 9. At number 9 on this list, I have to go with his direct predecessor, his generational predecessor. That is none other than the greatest Indiana Pacer of all time, another top 75 player, none other than Reggie Miller, you know, and I'll say that Reggie's resume speaks for itself. Once like pretty much for a long time, well before Steph Curry, Reggie Miller was the benchmark. He was the standard when it came to 3-point greatness, and that is evident obviously with the legendary playoff moments and games against the Knicks, games against the Bulls, you name it, if you will. So so of course, like I said, Reggie Miller's name lives on, especially when it comes to, let's just say, when it comes to New York, his name lives on in infamy, especially when it comes to Spike Lee. You know what I mean? Of course, as far as that, and so so of course I'm gonna name off, of course I'm gonna name off some of Reggie's accolades, if you will. He was a five-time NBA All-Star, 1990, 95, 96, 98, 2000. Three-time All-NBA third team, 95, 96, 98. He was also in 94. He was also part of the 50, 40, 90 club. What that is when somebody for the season shoots 50% from the floor, 40% from the 3-point line, and 90% from the free throw line. So Reggie did all that in one season. He also 2004 he won the J. Walter Kennedy Citizenship Award. He was named to the NBA 75th anniversary team. Number 31 was retired by the Indiana Pacers. And by the way, speaking of that, it just so happens that the guy that it just so happens that the guy that at number 10, Ray Allen, has yet to have his number retired by anybody. But that's a whole another story for another day. And so Reggie finished his career with 25,279 points, and of course, let me slow down. Of course, he had an 18-year career from 1987 to 2005. Went to the Hall of Fame in 2011 as a player. Of course, he went to the Basketball Hall of Fame in I believe it was in 2011. So yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? So so of course when it comes to 3-point greatness, when it comes to 3-point excellence, let me take that back. He actually went to the Hall of Fame in 2012. Excuse me. So and of course he finished his career with 2,563 pointers made, and of course the guy that named number 10, Ray Allen. Let me see about his. I believe in fact originally, like I said, of course, like I said, originally Reggie Allen. Reggie Miller was the standard when it came to 3-point shooting, and of course, eventually Ray Allen surpassed his record. And the guy that surpassed Ray Allen's record, it just so happened to be Steph Curry, my number 3 point guard of all time. So so of course, like I said, some of that. Let me slow down. I'll just just say that I'll just say when it comes to 3-point shooters, guys like Steph Curry, Reggie Allen. I mean, somebody keep saying it. Steph Curry, Ray Allen, Reggie Miller. Those guys like that. Steph Curry, Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, Klay Thompson. Those guys are the benchmarks when it comes to 3-point excellence, 3-point greatness. You could and if you want to make a case for somebody like Larry Bird, as well as Dirk Nowitzki, go right ahead. But the only thing about Larry is that at that time they didn't really shoot too many threes, and so and of course when it comes to somebody like Dirk, he was definitely a pioneer when it came to stretch fours. But that's another story for another day when it comes to my power forward. So that's later. So anyway, like I said, number 9, Reggie Miller. Number 8, the San Antonio Spurs' very first star. You call slash superstar, if you will. And this guy was certainly a pioneer when it came to ABA players. There's another guy who was also part of the top 75 list, and of course, it's hard to find anybody that's cooler than him. The master of the finger roll. You know what I mean? In fact, before Reggie Miller, you could say this was the original. Like you could pretty much say this was the NBA's original Skeletor, if you will. And of course, that is none other than the Iceman himself, George Gervin. And when it came, and the thing about it is that when it came to the ABA, I'll say next to Dr. J, George Gervin was certainly one of the bigger standout stars. You can also make a case, along with somebody like David Thompson. Artis Gilmore as well. So Gervin was definitely in that mix when it came to breakout stars on the ABA side, guys that were definitely giving the NBA huge competition. And so so of course, even though Dr. J was certainly the main figurehead, the standard when it came to the ABA, I would say if you could pick anybody right underneath him, it'll be Iceman. And much like Dr. J, Iceman's career numbers are kind of skewed just because of the merger and because of the NBA ABA merger. There's certain things that the NBA doesn't really acknowledge when it comes to, at least when it comes to stats, when it comes to career points. So, as a result, Dr. J's NBA legacy, definitely takes, definitely has, you could say, certain hits when it comes to his statistics. You could very much say the same thing when it comes to George Gervin. But with that being said, when you combine his numbers all together, Gervin played in 14. Of course, when you combine everything together from ABA to NBA, George Gervin had a 14-year career. And so, of course, with that being said, I'm gonna, with that being said, I'm gonna round off some of his accomplishments. When it comes to NBA, Gervin was a 9-time All-Star from 77 to 85. And that also includes an NBA All-Star Game MVP award in 1980. He was also named to the All NBA first team 5 times from 78 to 82. He was also named to the All NBA second team twice from 1977 to 83. He was a 4-time scoring champion from 78 to 80 as well as 82. And of course, when it comes to ABA, he was a 3-time ABA All-Star from 74 to 76. And he was a 2-time All-NBA second team member from 1975 to 76. And his number 44 was retired by the San Antonio Spurs. So he made it to both the NBA's 50th anniversary team and the 75th anniversary team. And he's also part of the ABA's all-time team. And when you put his numbers all together, NBA and ABA included, George Gervin had a total of 26,595 points, with an average of 25.1 points per game, 5,602 rebounds, 5.3 rebounds per game, 2,798 assists, 2.6 a game, and everything like that. And so, and of course, he went to the Basketball Hall of Fame in 1996. So before, and the thing about it is that, the thing about Gervin is that even before David Robinson, let alone way before Tim Duncan, George Gervin was the San Antonio Spurs' original franchise player. And so because of that, and because like I said, because of his impact, because of what he meant to that early, to those early Spurs years, pre-championships, because, like I said, because of his importance at that time, I have to recognize him. The thing is, I certainly have to, recognize the greatness of the Iceman, George Gervin. At number 6, the Beard himself, a 3-time scoring champion. Someone who's, you could say is a rather polarizing figure in today's time. A guy who was, in the way that the same way that George Gervin was known for his finger roll, this guy's been known for a step back jumper. Like I said, this guy's been known, been known for a step back shot. Typically 3-point shot, if you will. And this guy's definitely been a playmaker all throughout his career. He certainly has a very high, let's say, usage rating, and much like Iceman, this guy's also, pretty much been known to be somewhat of a defensive liability. The only thing that separates this guy from Gervin is the MVP award. But other than that, not too much difference. And of course, that is none other than the Beard himself, James Harden. And so, it's of course originally James Harden originally James Harden started his career as a six man with the stacked Oklahoma City Thunder team led by Kevin Durant as well as Russell Westbrook. And so, so of course, so far the only shot that James Harden has had for the finals was in that 2012 season. But after that, he ends up going to Houston, has this just becomes this breakout. Excuse me, sorry about that. So of course, after he leaves Oklahoma City, he ends up going to Houston, and just out of nowhere, just becomes this massive like breakout star over there, and becomes a franchise player, and just becomes pretty much becomes sort of like the end all be all, if you will, at least at that time when it came to the Houston Rockets, because everything depended on him, everything just relied on him. And so, with that being said, James Harden, over the course of now a 13-year career, he's been a 10-time NBA All-Star, and of course that sorry about that. Of course, he's been a 10-time NBA All-Star from 2013, which is first full season, first season in Houston, all the way up until this year in 2022. He was also the NBA's most valuable player in 2018, and of course that includes his first of three straight scoring titles from 2018 to 2020. He was also part of the All NBA First Team 6 times from 2014, and then again in 15, and then 17 through 20. He was also part of the All NBA Third Team in 2013, and he's also in 2017. He was also the NBA's assist leader, and that says a lot considering the fact that in 2017 Russell Westbrook was the MVP because of that triple double season. And so, with and of course another thing, he was also named the NBA Sixth Man in 2012. But with all excuse me, sorry about that. But another thing is, like I said, with all that being said, in spite of his offensive brilliance, once again, he's definitely developed a very notorious. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. Actually, there's somebody that skipped. I don't know why I skipped this guy. I guess that's been, just been. I guess I'm just rushing ahead of myself. At number 7, actually. Of course, at number 7 is a guy that's that's kind of like a sort of unsung hero, if you will. Someone that that pretty much flies under the radar, and a guy who's certainly an all-time great. But unfortunately for him, he played in the same era as a certain guy in Chicago, number 23, named Michael Jeffrey Jordan. So, because of the fact that you played the same position as Michael, and excuse me, because of the fact that you played the same position as Michael, and your game was similar to his, because of that, you often left under the radar, and it was not my intention to do that, but but of course, like I said, I guess I'm just kind of like just running ahead of myself, when it comes to this. Number 7, Portland Trailblazers legend. Legacy wise, I'll say he's the Blazers' greatest player of all time, because of the fact that he led them to 2 finals appearances. The first one, they became the first one they fell victim to the Bad Boy Pistons, and the second one they ended up falling victim once again. Once again they fall victim this time to the. Of course, once again they fall victim this time to the Chicago Bulls in their repeat, in their second out of their first. The thing about it is that with the Blazers, they became the Bulls' second victim during their first three-peat. And so so the thing about it is that because this guy played in Jordan's shadow, it's just that his career is kind of skewed, not really appreciated as much, and that is none other than Clyde the Glide Drexler. Drexler was a 10-time NBA All-Star. He's also been a member of the All NBA First Team in 1992, in that season, he was all in that of course in that 92 season. I would say that was his best overall season because he finished second place in MVP voting to, of course, none other than Jordan himself. He was also a member of that 1992 Dream Team as well. And so, and so Clyde Drexler, was certainly the benchmark when it came to the Portland Trailblazers. He was their end all be all. He was a franchise guy, and he carried them as far as he can carry them. Like I said, once again, unfortunately, he became a notch on Jordan's belt, especially when it came to all those media comparisons, between Drexler and Jordan being the natural competitor that he is. He heard that, and the switch just went off. And by the time they face each other in the finals, Jordan just outclassed him, just straight up smoked him. You know what I mean? To the point where he shot 6 straight 3-pointers, and all he did was a shrug, like, yeah, this ain't really, I ain't really taking this too seriously, and it just got to the point, and the thing is, with the way that Jordan dispatched him, and the thing about it is, I say it like this: with the way that Jordan dispatched him, Jordan might as well have said, "Clyde who?" You know what I mean? And so after that, he wasn't exactly the same player as he was before. You know what I mean? The thing is, after 11 and a half, nearly 12 seasons of carrying that team on his back, like I said, putting up great numbers, like 27, 7-7, 27, 7-8, and things like that. You know what I mean? That if you take his name off, some of those seasons with those 27 points per game, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, things like that, if you take his name off, those pretty much look like LeBron type of numbers, if you will. Not saying he's the same, caliber player or anything like that, but that's just a testament of how special Clyde Drexler was and how he's not really, regarded as, as much NBA history. So anyway, after that, after the 92 season, after they go to the finals, Clyde's game kind of hits the wall, and he faces like a steady decline, and they realize, what, time's not really on my side. So he ends, so as a result, he ends up getting traded midway through that 94-95 season to the Houston Rockets, reunites with his old college teammate, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Olajuwon carries him to a championship. Of course, as the Houston Rockets, swept the up-and-coming Orlando Magic 4 games-0. And Drexler, and the thing is, at that point, Drexler as a sidekick was very pivotal as well. You know what I mean? So, and the thing about it was, it's just that he was hungry for it. So in 95, of course, he finally gets a championship. And at the end of the day, he gets his number retired by both the Blazers and the Rockets. And he ends up becoming the first ballot Hall of Famer in 2004. So with that being said, Clyde Drexler, number 7. And, and of course, the aforementioned, as I mentioned before, James Harden is at number 6. And so, and of course, and the thing, and like I said, the thing that separates Harden from from guys like Drexler and Gervin is the MVP award, but not too much else. Like I said, don't, like, the main thing that separates him from them is the MVP award. But but the thing is, Harden's resume is very identical to Gervin, because of the fact that Gervin was a 4-time scoring champion, Harden's a 3-time scoring champion. Like I said, but like I said, neither one of them were that special on defense. Like I said, once again, the only difference is the MVP award. But but the thing is, take the MVP award away, not too much of a difference. And so, and of course, another thing about another drawback about Harden is obviously his shortcomings when it comes to the playoffs. Whether it was with the Rockets, whether it was with the Nets, and even now with the 76ers. You know what I mean? So it's clear. It's clear to see that that time's not exactly on his side. I don't know if he really cares too much about that. So, but with what he's given, with the sample size that he's given us so far, along with the future, of course, with the future Hall of Fame induction, everything like that, like I said, with what he's given us so far, I had to put James Harden at number 6. Number 5, there's just no doubts on this one, especially now that we're in the top 5 of this. And number 5 is none other than cultural game changer, trendsetter, if you will, especially especially when it comes to the millennial generation, like myself that grew up watching this guy, elementary school, middle school. You know what I mean? This I mean, like his popularity was super duper high. This guy was this guy was literally the face of the early NBA 2K era, from the first 2K to 2K1 and 2K2, and I think even 2K3 as well. You know what I mean? So, and this guy was, certainly the face of the Philadelphia 76ers. He carried that franchise, that city on his back. This dude was a warrior, pound for pound, arguably the greatest small man, in NBA history, arguably one of the greatest little men in the history of the NBA. And that is none other than the crossover king himself, just ask Jordan. The answer, Allen Iverson. What else needs to be said about Iverson? He certainly earned this top 5 spot for me, just because of his influence, because of his cultural impact. Without Allen Iverson, you would not have your Russell Westbrook. You can even say without Iverson, you wouldn't have your Steph Curry. Without Iverson, you would not have Kyrie Irving. You know what I mean? So, so the thing is, the thing is, not only does Iverson have the cultural imprint, but he's got the resume to go along with it. And so of course, rightfully so, Iverson was named on the top, was put on the other top 75 team. He was a first ballot Hall of Famer in 2016, along with Shaquille O'Neal. And fun fact, the only reason why Shaq did not win the unanimous MVP in 2000, the best season of his career, the only reason why he didn't win it was because Iverson got the one vote that stopped it. And so Iverson was, the thing is, Iverson was the perfect torch carrier in the aftermath of Dr. J, and you could even say Charles Barkley, but ultimately, next, like I said, ultimately, I'll say it like this: ultimately, besides Dr. J, there wasn't any other Sixers player that that carried that city on their back, that carried that Sixers flag, if you will, you know what I mean, that symbolizes 76ers. Nobody else that symbolized it the way that Iverson did. And so, so of course, over the course of his career, Iverson was an 11-time NBA All-Star from 2000 to 2010, and of course, his greatest claim to fame was that 2001 MVP award. He was also a 2-time All-Star Game MVP in 2001 and 2005. He was a 3-time All-NBA first team member from 99. 2001 obviously was an MVP season, as well as in 05. He's a 3-time All-NBA second team member in 2000, 2002, and 2003. And of course, he was named to the All-NBA third team in 2006. That's back when he was with the, that was back when he was with the Denver Nuggets. Actually, no, that was actually his last season with the 76ers. I'm sorry, of course, in 1997 he was the Rookie of the Year. Of course, he finished his career averaging 26.7 points per game, and with a total of 24,368 points. So he just fell short of 25,000. But but at the same time, like I say, Iverson was absolute phenomenon during that time. And so with the way that he carried that 76er squad all the way to the finals, as underhanded as they were, going up against a world beater, powerhouse, Hall of Fame Laker team led by Shaq at the height of his game, Kobe was emerging, and you have the rest of the army behind him. The fact that Iverson was able to get a win over them, even one, the fact he was even able to get that one win against that team, even though eventually it was pretty obvious. I think Iverson even knew himself that the Lakers, were eventually going to end up winning anyway. So, but like I said, but the fact that he has that on his resume speaks volumes. So, because of those things, I have to put Iverson at number 5. At number 4, this guy's the franchise. This guy will always be, to me, the greatest Miami Heat player of all time. And of course he was the most instrumental reason why, the most instrumental reason why LeBron went to Miami in the first place. Because of the legacy that this guy had. This guy was leaving even before LeBron got there, and this guy was the one that really set the table for that. for the Heat big three, if you will. Um, and so, and of course, this is another top 75 member, future Hall of Famer, future first ballot Hall of Famer, and his name is all over. His name is, and the thing about it is his name is all over that Miami Heat franchise. And I'll have to go with no other than Flash himself, Dwayne Wade, number 3. And so usually when people make lists, they usually have Dwayne Wade at number 3, right behind the guys that have at number 1 and number 2. But I feel like when it comes to this, I have to keep the same energy when it comes to ranking players by position as I would an overall top 75 list. So because I cannot rank Wade ahead of the guy that's directly ahead of him on the top 75 list, because I can't do that, I have to put, because of that, I have to put him at number 4. And the thing about it is that over the course of his 16-year career, I mean, his resume speaks for itself. Over the course of that 16-year career, he scored 23,165 points. Of course, ending with an average of 22 points per game. He's a 3-time NBA champion in 2006, 2012, 2013, and he was also the NBA Finals MVP in 2006, and one of the most legendary Finals performances of all time as the Miami Heat defeated the Dallas Mavericks 4-2. With and of course with Wade being the undisputed superstar of that team. For me, that is the peak of Dwayne Wade when I think about his career, the 06 version. So, of course, he was a 13-time NBA All-Star from 2005 to 2016, and again in 2019. He's also the NBA's All-Star Game MVP in 2010, All-NBA First Team twice in 2009, 2010, the All-NBA Second Team 3 times in 05, 06, 2011, All-NBA Third Team in 2007, 12, and 13. Excuse me. He's also part of the NBA All Defensive Second Team, 2005, 2009, 2010, and so, and of course, he was named to the NBA 75th anniversary team. His number 3 was retired by the Miami Heat. The only things holding away, the only things that really held him back were injuries, and so had the injuries not taken the toll that they took, then I wouldn't really have too much of a problem putting him at number 3. But with that being said, my number 3 choice is, someone, let's just say, has become somewhat of a rather polarizing figure just because of winning time and because he's been the logo for so long at a time that, at a time where fans are looking for a change when it comes to that logo, if you will. This was I'll say it like this: when the Lakers first went to Los Angeles, he was their first really superstar player, if you will, in that post George Mikan era of the Lakers. Actually, I'll say it was Elgin Baylor, but I'll say it like this: but I'll actually give this guy the nod over Elgin Baylor, just because of the fact that he was, just because of the fact that he was a better leader, he was more efficient, everything like that, and so. And unfortunately for him, his finals record was 1-8, and so so of course, as a result, those Lakers teams were certainly were a notch on the belt of a guy like Bill Russell, and so and like I said, because of that, his legacy suffers. And however, even though he was a 14-time All-Star, meaning he was an All-Star every season of his career. But the fact that he never won an MVP award really hurts him. But but also at the same time, he's the first and only player to win the Finals MVP on a losing team, and that is none other than the logo himself, Mr. Clutch, Jerry West, at number 3. And for his career, West had 25,192 points, averaged 27 a game, and so of course, eventually became an NBA champion in 1972. And the thing is, like, long before Jordan, Jerry West was actually the benchmark when it came to shooting guards. So, even though you could put him as a point guard, but for me, I'd rather acknowledge him more so as a shooting guard. Just because he was just absolute gunslinger when it came to shooting. So at number 2, another Laker legend, another Laker icon. Unfortunately, he's gone too soon. But at the same time, this guy, I'll say it like this: this guy was bold enough to take the chance on being one of those guys who wanted to be like Mike, copy Mike's formula, you know what I mean, and carve his own name, carve his own legacy. Because before him, there was so many other guys that that tried to emulate Jordan. So many other guys that the media wanted to paint as the next Mike, but this guy took that challenge. He was not afraid to take that challenge, and in doing so, as he accepted that challenge, as he met that challenge, he left. Like I said, he left a massive imprint, a massive stamp on the NBA, on the Lakers franchise. He's the Lakers all-time leader in points with 33,643 points. Of course, excuse me, sorry about that. And of course, his resume is just so decorated. You know what I mean? It's amazing. Of course, obviously he's a 5-time NBA champion, 2-time Finals MVP in 2009, 2010. He was a 1-time league MVP. He should have more than just that 2008 MVP. He was robbed, for various reasons. Of course, he's been named to multiple. Of course, he's been named to. Of course, he's been named to multiple all NBA first teams and all defensive first teams, and that is none other than the Black Mamba himself, Kobe Bean Bryant. What else about Kobe, can you say that hasn't been said already? You know what I mean? Like I said, the thing with him is that he was the benchmark. The thing about him is that you can make a case that, for me, I could very well say that when it comes to the 2000s, as great as Shaq was, as great as Duncan was, Kobe, is certainly the biggest star, the biggest superstar, the most marquee name when it came to the 2000s, at least when it came to, just when it came to that consistency. Both him and Duncan had that consistency, but it's just something about Kobe that just sticks out so much more. What I mean? It's still so surreal that he's not here to, to really receive those flowers. So, what I mean? And of course, obviously, he was the first ballot Hall of Famer. He was the headliner, the biggest name of his Hall of Fame class, without question. And I'm proud to say that I have several Kobe shirts, as well as a number 24 jersey. And so we could see, and the thing is, we saw the growth in this guy. He went from being, and the thing is, him and Shaq were Batman and Robin. So Shaq was obviously Batman. We saw Kobe from going from being Robin to becoming Nightwing, and carving his own legacy, carving his own name, carving his own, path, if you will. And so, with that being said, Kobe's number 2. Number 1, come on now. What else needs to be said? Sorry for going overtime with this. What else needs to be said? This guy is a 6-time NBA champion, undefeated in the finals MVP each time, 10-time scoring champion, 10-time All NBA first team, 9-time All Defensive first team, 5-time league MVP, a Defensive Player of the Year, led the league in steals 3 times. Like I said, and just the list goes on and on and on. He had 32,292 points, averaged over 30.1 points per game in the regular season. In the playoffs, like 33.45. In the finals, like 33.6. And even in the finals, he at his highest average, like 41 points per game. And so, what else about him, do we have to say? No other than the 3rd overall pick. If you started over, he'd be the 1st overall pick. And from the 1984 draft, the GOAT himself, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Like I said, excellence personified. He's the closest thing that we have when it comes to basketball perfection. And so, like I said, it's just. I mean, what else needs to be said? He's the standard. He's the standard bearer when it comes to shooting guards. He's standard bearer when it comes to just overall players in and of himself. You know what I mean? Like, he is uncomparable. You know what I mean? He transcended worldwide, a phenomenon overall. You know what I mean? He checks off all the boxes that I named earlier at the beginning of this list. And so as a result, Jordan for me is number one, has been number one, always will be number one, undisputed.